Thank you for joining our 5th Evesham Township Shares webinar. My name is Stacy Webb. I am Deputy Director of Community Development, and I am extremely excited to share this morning with you some information that will be beneficial to our business community. We want to start this morning by going over how this webinar is going to run. I'm going to share with you my screen. Sorry. As I mentioned, this is part 5, and I want to go over our agenda for today. Our agenda will include our Mayor, Jacqueline Vesey, giving some words to our business community and to our guest speakers, just talking about how she's going to say what she feels is good to share with you. Then I'm going to come back and go over our guidelines for this information session or webinar. I'm also going to explain the purpose of the webinars and our mission statement, why we decided to put these together for you. I then get the pleasure of introducing our speakers of the day, and I will come back once they are done and discuss next steps. I'm going to stop sharing now so that our mayor can come on and give some words.
Thank you, Stacy. Thank you for being here this morning. I want to give a special thank you to our 2 speakers, guest speakers today, Wayne and Rob. We started the Evesham Economic Advisory Council last year, and through our efforts this year, this webinar series has been born. And I thank all of the members of our Economic Advisory Council for coming up with this idea. And as one of our guest speakers is one of those members, I'm really grateful for that today. I just want to encourage all of our businesses to keep pushing forward through this challenging time. I can see a light at the end of the tunnel, but what I love about this webinar series is that what we're teaching isn't just for times of COVID, but for just how to be good business owners. And I appreciate all the knowledge that both our speakers are going to be sharing with us today. So thank you all. Have a great day and a great morning, and we'll see you again next month.
Thank you, Mayor Vesey. I'm going to start sharing again and go over, as I mentioned, our guidelines for the webinar. This is an informational session. So our goal, as Mayor Vesey just mentioned, is to provide some guidelines, some information to you, our business community. This is a recorded webinar, and a copy of this presentation that I am going over right now will be provided on our Evesham Township website along with the recorded session. Questions can be submitted via the chat function, and they will be answered at the end of the presentation today of both of our speakers, provided there's enough time. All of our questions will then be added to our frequently asked questions page that will be in addition to this presentation that you're looking at now. Each presenter, however, will provide their own contact information. So if you as a viewer or an audience member would like to reach out to them directly, you most certainly can do that. Additional questions that are not answered through this webinar, or if you don't feel comfortable reaching out to the guest speakers right now, you're not sure who it would fall or go to, then you can call me directly, and my information will be also provided at the end of the webinar. I will then also, if it's appropriate, add those questions to the frequently asked questions page. Our purpose and mission statement. This, as Mayor Vesey mentioned, came from some ideas and thoughts of the Economic Advisory Council that came from some of the requirements or questions from our business community. So Evesham Township Office of Community Development is focused this year on sharing information to our businesses. on a consistent basis. So we do that in multiple ways. We have the Evesham Township Shares webinar, which is monthly. This is also, again, an informational session so that we provide and share updated programs and information that is both financial and non-financial. These guidelines or guidance will provide an assistance in things that you may know or may not know or may need some clarity on in these clearly unprecedented times, but also in the future. In addition to our speakers, the information, as I mentioned, will also be available on our website through social media posts. And you can always call our office and reach out to me directly if you have any questions or concerns or anything that you're not sure of. So now I'm going to have the pleasure of sharing information about our speakers. Today we have two. We have Mr. Robert Curley and Mr. Wayne Staub. Rob Curley is from TD Bank, and he is the TD Bank South Jersey, Coastal New Jersey Market President. Wayne Staub is the New Jersey Business and Industry Association, or NJBIA, Chief Business Relations Officer. We're going to start with Rob Curley. Rob is, as I mentioned, has been with TD Bank, and as the South Jersey Coastal New Jersey Market President, he leads commercial and small business lending teams throughout Mercer, Burlington, Camden, Gloucester, Cumberland, and Salem counties. Rob has been with TD Bank since 1989. He has a professional and personal desire to help businesses in Marlton by providing accurate and current helpful information. So excited to hear what Rob is going to share with us today. He's very active in the community of Marlton. You may already know him yourself, and serves on the Evesham Economic Advisory Council. Rob has an approach, is going to provide how to approach a bank for a loan. He's also going to talk about approaching the bank when you're having financial issues. He's going to also go over other financial options such as grants, grant money that might be available that you may not know about. And finally, he's going to talk about preventing fraud and security breaches. Some of those things we may or may not know, but he's going to go in a little more detail for us. Mr. Wayne Staub on the other side, our second speaker today, is the Chief Business Relations Officer for New Jersey NJBIA. Wayne is part of the executive team and works with the other officers on short-term and long-term strategic planning. Wayne works closely in helping to develop exclusive business programs. When I spoke with Wayne, I understood how important the business that he does at NJBIA would be for our business community to understand and know. Because of these exclusive business programs and partnerships for members of NJBIA, I felt it was important that he talk about what the benefit is. He's going to talk about, he serves on several boards, including the New Jersey Board of Capital Region Minority Chamber of Commerce, the Trenton Board Downtown Association, the College of New Jersey IRB Board, Lead New Jersey Fellow in 2019, and Applicant Review Committee, and the Ewing Public Education Foundation, Today, he's going to talk about the resources available through NJBIA, the benefits of membership with NJBIA, and how NJBIA is an advocate for businesses. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now and allow Mr. Rob Curley to talk with you.
Thank you, Stacy. I'm glad to be here this morning. So as Stacy mentioned, I've been with the bank 32 years. And I was born and raised here in Marlton, lived here my whole life. So I'm very happy to be part of the Economic Recovery Board here in Evesham, and always willing to help out our town because I love the town, which is why I've lived here for the last 53 years. So I'm excited to be on this panel with Wayne Staub from NJBIA. I know Wayne, and I can tell you that NJBIA does a lot of great things, has a lot of great programs to help businesses in New Jersey. So please look them up. TD is a member, and we'd like you to look them up afterwards. So as Stacy mentioned, I'm going to talk about how to get a business loan, because I know that can be a scary and arduous process for business owners. I'm going to talk about what types of loans are there, including any pandemic recovery type options and grants. And then lastly, I'm going to talk about how to protect your business from fraud. And a lot of this applies to you personally as well, because as COVID started this work from home environment a year and a half ago, or 14 months ago, we've seen all banks have seen a 300% increase in cybersecurity and fraud, because working from home presents a whole lot of challenges where when you're in your business, you might have different protections that you don't have at home. So first, I'm going to start off with talking about how to get a business loan. And I think the very first step, most importantly, is to choose the right bank. There's big banks, there's medium-sized banks, there's small banks, and then there's online finance companies and banks versus brick and mortar type banks. And each one is different and provides a certain niche service, I'll call it. Some banks provide everything, like you need to kind of do a little research on what bank is best for you. If you're okay with applying online and not having any human contact with a banker, that's a great option. But if you are looking for a consultative type relationship, you really want to choose a bank. And I think a lot of business owners think, oh, my loan's only $25,000. What bank's going to talk to me? Well, there's a lot of banks that'll talk to you. And most banks have segments that'll service any small business loan from as small as 25,000 upwards. Is the sky's the limit. So choosing the right bank, I think, is really important. Once you choose your bank, it's a pretty standard package of information you have to supply to get a loan. 3 years business financial statements or tax returns, 3 years personal tax returns, a personal financial statement which lists all your assets and liabilities, and we need that for each owner of the business. Sometimes, depending on what kind of loan it is, like for example, if it's a line of credit, we're going to maybe ask for your accounts receivable aging and your accounts payable aging. And in some cases, if you're a growing business and you're borrowing to help finance your future, we're going to ask for projections or a budget for what the next year, 2 or 3 looks like. And in some cases, we'll ask for a business plan, but that's not always necessary. So a lot of business owners spend a lot of money putting together these great business plans. And from my perspective, they're great to have, but we'd rather have a sit down conversation, learn about your business, learn about what your plan is, and then just look at your financials. So business plans aren't always necessary. So once you submit your paperwork to the bank, what is it that we look at to help make the loan decision? And a lot of this applies to whether it's a business loan or a personal loan, it's like mortgage, like a residential mortgage. But each one is very distinct and different in what metrics we look at. So all banks, and this has been around as long as I've been in banking, we sort of follow what we call the 5 C's of credit, and that's a system that all lenders use to kind of gauge the creditworthiness of a potential business customer. The first C, which is probably the most important, is character. We want to make sure that we're lending to people of high character, and that's done through conversation and due diligence. We run credit reports on all business owners, so credit history, personal credit history, is very important when we make business loan decisions. And a lot of banks also run what we call LexisNexis reports, Google searches. You'd be surprised what you can find on Google about people. So before you apply to bank, Google yourself and make sure there's nothing bad out there, because if there is, we're going to find it and ask you about it. So The second C is capacity. Capacity is basically the capacity of the business to service the loan that we're providing. And we measure that with what we call debt service coverage ratio. So we take your total, cash flow, your EBITDA basically, and then we divide that by the annual debt service, and we come up with a ratio. And there's minimum ratios that we look for, and it varies by business and industry. So certain industries will have a very low debt service coverage ratio requirement. Others we might go higher. But it's similar to what a debt to income ratio when you apply for a consumer loan. Very similar process, and that's probably the number one metric we look at, because we want to make sure that your business is not borrowing money they can't pay back. And so therefore that's when we look at your tax returns, we look at all your projections and all that good stuff. The third C is capital, and that's really the easiest way to describe that is that's the amount of money that you have access to help fund your business. Banks don't want to be your partner. We want to help you grow your business, and we want to help you, purchase equipment and buildings and so forth. But we don't want to be in a position where you don't have the wherewithal to support your business without coming to the bank every single time. So we do look at your balance sheet, how much liquidity you have, how much current assets you have. The fourth C is collateral, and that's any asset that can back or act as a security for the loan. It could be equipment, it could be a property, it could be accounts receivable, it could be any number of things. So those are really the 5 primary factors that we look at on every loan request. And depending on how big or small the loan is, we'll do higher levels of due diligence. But the due diligence is the same regardless. It just might be more robust on a larger, more complex transaction. I always say there's actually 6 C's of credit analysis, and the 6th one to me is communication. It's very important that you communicate with your banker. For example, when you apply for the loan, if there's something in your credit history that you are aware of, where there's something that we're going to find on Google or through a LexisNexis search, which tells us more about your background, you should be upfront and honest about that. People sometimes are afraid to apply for a loan because maybe they had a bankruptcy 8 years ago or 9 years ago, or I've even seen customers where they had a minor felony back when they were in college, acting crazy and stupid, and they maybe had an arrest for something. We're okay with some of these things, but we're not okay with it when we don't know about it. So it's very important to be very open and honest about what your past is, what skeletons we might find in your closet, because it's better for us to know going in than finding out on our own. And the same goes for when you have a relationship with a bank. I know one of the questions was, how did we approach our bank when we're having financial difficulties? The faster and sooner you can bring the bank into your situation, the higher the probability of us being able to help you through it. If you think your business is in a position where they might not be able to pay their loans next month or 6 months or even a year from now, you should talk to your banker about it, and let's try to develop solutions to kind of get you through that period. Because every business at some point has trouble, and we want to be there to help support it. It's much harder for us when we find these things out on our own, and we find out that you're on the verge of closing your doors or anything. So the banks do not like surprises. That's probably the single biggest thing that creates problem loans for banks and customers, is surprises. So and don't ever think anything is too big or small. We'd like to know everything. We're lending you money, and you're lending your business money, and the more you communicate, the quicker to communicate, and the more detail you provide, the much easier that process should be of getting through that problem. So next, I'm going to move over to the types of loans there are, because especially in the small business space, a lot of customers really don't know what it is that they need to help finance their business. So, all banks provide lines of credit, and that's really to help fund short-term needs. You have accounts receivable coming in, you're waiting for the cash to come in, but you have to pay bills. So that's where a line of credit comes in. It's just to service those gaps between collection of cash and payment of bills, to make it really simple. We do not like when customers use lines of credit to buy equipment, cars, boats, real estate, because that becomes a permanent need. And we really want you to use your line of credit as a short-term working capital product. Second most popular is letters of credit. A lot of landlords, I can tell you I have a lot of letters of credit here in Marlton where the business owner had to post a letter of credit to back their rent, for example. That's probably one of the most popular ones because the landlord wants to make sure, they're taking a risk on a small business. They want to make sure that their rent is covered for a year. So a lot of times they'll ask for a letter of credit. Sometimes your vendors might ask for letters of credit for various things. So banks provide a lot of letters of credit. We also do term loans and leases, equipment leases. Term loans and equipment leases are meant to buy equipment, maybe finance permanent working capital. And generally those loans range from anywhere from 5 years to a maximum of 10-year amortizations. And the difference between a term loan and a lease is term loans, like for example, if you're buying a dump truck and you want a term loan, most likely you're gonna have to put 20 to 25% cash equity into the purchase. Whereas if you do an equipment lease, we'll do 100% financing. And a lot of people like that because they don't want to put the money out of their pocket. So that's another thing when you're looking at your banks, find out who does equipment leasing, because not every bank does. We're one of the few banks here in South Jersey that does equipment leasing. A lot of the bigger banks do have equipment finance divisions, but a lot of the smaller banks do not. They can only offer you that term loan option. And then commercial real estate loans, obviously we do a lot of those. It could be an owner occupied building, it could be a office building, it could be an investment property. But we do a lot of those, and those are loans that are generally 15, 20, 25-year amortizations. And then you should also consider, if you're, depending on what your industry is, there's a lot of specialty products. Probably the two most popular are restaurant franchise type loans. Again, not every bank has this, but larger banks do, where we offer restaurant franchise financing to help finance, it could be a Dunkin' Donuts, it could be anything. And we do a lot of that. And the reason why that's important is a lot of restaurants they have enterprise value, and we lend against the enterprise value of the franchise. So you have to find a bank that has the capability to determine what is the enterprise value of your business. And the same thing with healthcare practice solutions. We do a lot of dentist loans, doctor loans, veterinarian loans, and the same thing applies there. We'll do up to 125% of the practice value. And that's an important thing to know when you're looking for a bank as well, because again, not every bank offers that type of product. And then probably one of the greatest products, in my opinion, is the SBA, U.S. Small Business Administration, because they will guarantee 70 to 90% of the loan. So if we're making $1 million loan to your business and maybe the collateral's tight and you don't have enough collateral to support that loan, we can look at the SBA because they're guaranteeing 70 to 90% of that loan to the bank. So that's a big thing for us, and that makes us comfortable with deals we probably wouldn't do without the SBA. So you want to have a bank that can do SBA, because again, not every bank does SBA. So, but it's a great program. And this past year, and still happening today, they're offering all kinds of great incentives to do SBA loans. This past year, unfortunately, we saw a whole lot of new types of loans come out because of the pandemic. And probably the most popular that everybody has heard about is the Paycheck Protection Program, known as PPP. That has been what I call a lifesaver. I mean, when a year ago, we thought half our portfolio was going to go bad because customers were shut down, but that PPP loan really saved millions of businesses in our country from going out of business. And it was a great program. It's still active. There's still money available for PPP2. And if you didn't apply for a PPP back in the spring, you can also apply for a PP1 and a PPP2. I will tell you that last week, they took the money away from the banks that was left and gave it to a lot of what we call CDFIs in New Jersey. RBAC, Regional Business Assistance Corp, is the one that's processing them here in New Jersey. And so you'd have to go to them at this point. But the money is still available, and it's a great program. And we're now going through the forgiveness process where these loans are actually being 100% forgiven. So you don't have to pay it back. And it's a wonderful program that has really saved what I think it saved our country, honestly, because small business is really a big driver of our economy. The other product we saw was the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, which was also an SBA product. That was a direct program from the SBA, not through a bank, but that was another great program. And now today there's stuff like the Restaurant Revitalization Program, the Shuttered Venues Program. There's a whole host of programs. If you look at the SBA.gov website, there's a ton of programs out there still to help get your business back on its feet after the pandemic. And then locally, and maybe, I don't know if Wayne might talk about this, I'm not sure, is the New Jersey Economic Development Authority. There's a number of programs that they've offered that are grant programs for various industries. I can't say I've had a lot of experience with it because they're relatively newer programs, but there seems to be quite a few different programs to help your business get back on its feet locally here in the state of New Jersey. So I would encourage you to go to the njeda.gov website. So the last thing I want to talk about is fraud and cybersecurity. This is a major problem for a lot of businesses and a lot of banks. And it seems like the criminals are always one step ahead of everybody else. So it's a constantly evolving thing. It's not like something you think, it's not something you can fix today and then forget about it. You have to constantly fix it. You have to constantly monitor what's happening in that arena. And as I said, primarily because of a shift to people working from home, like maybe your accounts payable department or your finance department, or even you personally, if you have a small business, you're working from home, and we've seen a 300% increase in fraud. So there's a lot of things that you can do to protect yourself, and some of it is common sense, and some of it might be a little more complicated. But again, I think picking a good bank is important. You want to ask your banker, well, what is your fraud prevention tools? How do you prevent cybersecurity? Because again, technology is very expensive, and not every bank has the best technology. So so you want to ask those questions. I'll start with online banking, which is, personally, and every business uses it. So if you're a business owner and you have multiple people that have access to your online banking platform for various things, you want to try to limit the user access based on the job duty. Maybe one person can do this and another person can do that, but you don't want to give everybody carte blanche to have access to your bank accounts. Same thing with when you have multiple users, you want to use dollar limits. Obviously the owner can have the maximum dollar limit because they own the business, but maybe if you have a treasurer or bookkeeper, you want to limit how much they can actually transact per day. You can do that through your bank. Tell them, Joe Smith, who's my bookkeeper, can only do up to $1,000 a day in transactions, and limit what they can do. You want to create, if you do a lot of wires and ACH, you want to create wire and ACH templates, but you only want to allow certain users to be able to create payment templates where they can pay certain bills ongoing. You don't want them to have the ability to create any template they want to and wire money anywhere they want to, because that's how your employees steal money from you. If you're getting a lot of if you're doing a lot of new wires or less frequent wires to places you're not as familiar with, you always want to verify the legitimacy of the source and make sure that you're not wiring money to the Eastern Europe, which is a hotbed for fraud. And I've seen it a lot. Businesses here in Marlton have done this, and once it's gone, it's very hard to get back. And your bank will work with you to get it back. But if you wire money by mistake to somewhere that we can't get it back, it's a loss that you're going to have to take. The banks aren't insured for this. When it comes to safe computing, again, prohibit using shared usernames and passwords across multiple people. Everybody should have their own username and password. This is one of the things, and we all do this. I probably do it myself. Is when you go to mobile banking on your phone, you might have autocomplete set up on your password storage functions and so forth. You really want to not do that on your web browser, because if somebody finds your phone and somehow can get into it, they can actually go into that, and then they have an automatic route right into your bank account. And we see this a lot. Never access online banking from a public computer or Wi-Fi. You really should turn off your Wi-Fi because when you're out walking around in a store or a mall or anywhere, and your Wi-Fi is searching for a connection, it'll automatically connect to networks that are insecure, and there's people standing around hacking your phone right there in the mall or right there at the promenade. It sounds crazy, but it happens. And I know it's inconvenient to have your Wi-Fi search function turned off all the time, and because every time you come home you got to turn it back on or whatever. But believe me, it could save you, because that's probably the biggest one of the biggest frauds we see is people, their phones get hacked just by walking down a street because they have their Wi-Fi search thing on, and some hacker is able to penetrate their phone and or their tablet or their laptop. You really should inform your employees and yourself, for that matter, of the dangers of clicking links or opening attachments and emails from unknown senders. That's a great way for people to get access to your systems. And also it's a great way for them to penetrate your system and then hold you up for ransomware too. So there's a lot of problems with opening unknown links. And as no matter how big or small your business is, you should always have a disaster plan and instruct all your employees on what to do if they suspect a PC or a network compromise. They should let you know immediately, and you should be able to have some kind of idea what you're going to do next if that happens. A couple other things. Let's see, just if you see unusual behavior, system behavior from some of your employees, that's obviously a red flag. Make sure you don't leave your user. Like one of the favorite things is people store their usernames and passwords in their desk drawer. Really not smart, because anybody could come up, go in their desk, find it, and so encourage your people not to do that. I've even been in business offices where the username and password was like pinned to the board behind their desk. So you really got to make sure your employees are protecting your usernames and passwords. Be very suspicious of unsolicited emails and phone calls from your bank. Banks don't generally call you and ask for your username, your password, or things like that. And we're seeing a lot of that happen lately, where you'll click onto a bogus bank website, which is very easy to create. You think you're actually connecting to TD Bank, for example, but you're really not. You're connecting to some hacker somewhere, and they freeze your computer, and then they call you and say, "Hey, I see you're trying to log into your TD Bank account. I'm from TD Bank," and they're so sophisticated that it'll actually say, "This is TD Bank calling," or Bank of America. You don't need it. It's a really robust operation. And then you get on the phone and you think it's your bank, and they ask you for your username or password, and now all of a sudden you just gave it out and they hack your account and take all your money. So no bank would ever call you and say, "Please give me your username and password." It just wouldn't happen. If you get that phone call or that email, you need to stop what you're doing and call your bank immediately and tell them what happened. Two last things. I know everybody's worried about expenses and so forth, but I think one of the best things you can pay for is hire an IT firm to come in and check out your cybersecurity, because ransomware is a big problem too. And we've actually had customers, their whole entire systems were hacked and stolen and frozen, and they have to pay millions of dollars to get their data back. Or they have to kind of rebuild their whole infrastructure, which could take months or years. So, hiring an IT firm, there's tons of them in the area, to come in and just check out your systems and make sure that you are secure is money well spent, because the losses could be much more bigger if you don't do it. And then the last thing is, again, talk to your banks, because the banks also have a lot of products available to help you with fraud and cybersecurity. Probably the most popular is called Positive Pay for business owners, where you send a file every day of what checks you've written for that day. And then if any checks come in that are fraudulent, because it's very easy to print fraudulent checks with great printers that we all have today. If something comes in that's out of sequence or something, we can use Positive Pay to identify that as a problem and call you immediately that there's a check that doesn't appear to be accurate. So banks have a lot of different tools that help as well. So, I know I spewed out a lot of information there, but I only had 15 minutes. So again, I'm happy to be here today. I'm always available to help businesses with any questions they may have. Again, PPP, although it's almost over, I think May 31st is the deadline. But hopefully everybody's doing well, and I appreciate being here today, and thank you.
Thank you, Rob. That was a lot of information, but it was a lot of useful information. And as I mentioned, if anyone has any questions, we're going to have some time for a couple of questions and maybe some additional information at the end. So now Wayne Staub is going to share some information. I am going to share my screen for him, and he's going to talk through some information for us.
Thank you, Stacy, and thank you, Rob. First of all, also a little plug for TD Bank, one of our members and partners who helped not only member companies, but so many businesses in New Jersey through the PPP, as Rob mentioned. And also want to mention that every year TD Bank is ranked, if not one, in the top 3 of SBA lenders in the state of New Jersey. So they really are there for the small business community. Pleasure to be here. I feel like today was kind of like the year in review. I woke up this morning early, ready to go, get to my computer, no internet. So I do what everybody does. I go and I unplug it and plug it back in. Seemed to work for a minute, but then went back off. So now I had to pivot and come to the office here in downtown Trenton. I get here and now I have a problem with my internet here. So now I had to pivot again, and thankfully Stacy is here and I'm on my phone and she's going to help me with the presentation. So just a reminder of how our past 12 to 14 months has been, learning to pivot. And I know, speaking to you businesses, you had to do a lot of that. Next slide, please. So who we are, NJBIA, we've been around for 111 years. We started out, we were built on advocacy, advocating for an industrializing Trenton and manufacturing back in 1910. We've expanded those resources, and we now are the New Jersey Business and Industry Association, which represents every industry sector, every business size, from banks like TD to every major hospital and university in the state. But a majority of our members are small to mid-sized businesses, just like yours, and just like the reflection of the country that makes up a majority of the businesses. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, we were built on advocacy, and we continue to be seen as the leader for advocacy for small businesses. This year has been very challenging. We have been on the forefront to increase opening capacities, to help where we can. It's been a tough road, but we're, like Stacy mentioned and the mayor mentioned, we see a light at the end of the tunnel. We've always felt that our small businesses had the ability to open safely, work safely, provide a safe work environment. And that's what we've been fighting for the last 12 to 14 months. We have 10 policy committees. They're made up of various different issue areas, tax and economic development, energy and environment, workforce development, technology, healthcare, just to name a few. Those are monthly meetings where leaders get together and talk about policy that's either in front of us now or pending, and how we can help to make it a more workable situation for our members. We do a lot with policymakers. We have a Meet the Decision Maker series where we had the state treasurer, Elizabeth Moyo, come in. We had the New Jersey Transit and DOT commissioner, DEP commissioner, to talk to our members about what their priorities are in the upcoming year. Obviously the budget is being worked on now. The good news that we're hearing right now is that there isn't going to be a tax increase. We're thankful for that. Revenues have come in better than expected, but we also lobbied against borrowing $4.2 billion, which the state did borrow, which is going to have some long-term effects on us. And that's some of the things we're focused on now from the advocacy side. We have research capabilities. We have a nonprofit arm of NJBIA called Focus New Jersey. Does a lot of research in partnerships with various people. We've done research on out-migration, the amount of revenue or wealth leaving the state of New Jersey. You may have seen that, New Jersey, the most recent census, we kind of gained a few residents. But our research shows that because of the high tax structure, we've lost over $11 billion of revenue that could have been taxed in the state by residents leaving for other more favorable states as Texas, even Delaware, Florida, other areas like that. We have county employer legislative committees. Some of you may participate in when we will bring in a local legislator to that area to talk about what they're working on, the committees they're on, and those types of issue areas. We track thousands of bills every year. One of the big benefits of membership is we have for our members a fast fact area on our website, and this gives you highlights of all kinds of legislations that's out there. You know, I'm on the website now. You know, of course, the new recreational marijuana workplace safety law. You know, what do we need to know about that? That's in there. Unemployment insurance compensation, which just got updated in May. You know, even things as far as hiring, you know, criminal convictions and hiring practices in New Jersey. What can you do? What can't you do? You know, guidance on criminal background checks. Really a lot of information in so many areas to help keep businesses compliant. Next slide, please. Pre-COVID, we did 70 plus live events. During COVID, we've done over 100 live events. I'm sorry, Zoom events. I can't wait to get back to live events. Our first live event this year is going to be our golf outing in June. But we put on some very significant events throughout the year. Our Women's Business Leaders Forum. Michelle Sakurkas, our president and CEO, is the first woman leader of our 111-year organization, and she's led the charge and grown this program. Last year, we had Cynthia Marshall, who's the first woman African-American CEO for the Dallas Mavericks, and it was phenomenal. And because of COVID, we did actually have quite a few people from outside the state who were interested to hear what Cynthia had to say. She was phenomenal. We do our public policy forum. That's every year in December at the end of the year. We bring the legislative leaders from both the Republican and Democratic caucuses to talk about what their priorities are. And we also have analysts who come on, and public pundits who talk about what's happening in the political world. I mentioned Golf Day. This year is our 50th anniversary. It always is a big event. This year we expect it even bigger because last year was supposed to be our 50th annual, but we had to postpone it because of obvious reasons. We have 4 councils that meet regularly. Our Nonprofit Council, our Diversity and Inclusion Council, our Women Business Leaders Council, and our Human Resources Council. Every month, these are member companies. They're led by members who talk about issues. There's always an education piece tied to it, and there's always time for networking as part of the events. TD Bank is one of the sponsors of many of these programs that I talk about. We have a lot of policy committee meetings, as I mentioned, the 10 policy committees. And during this year, I can't even tell you how many webinars we did on PPP loans, on, you know, Zoom tactics, on, you know, how to prepare for the new normal, mental health issues related to the COVID and working from home. I mean, hundreds of programs that were available to members and non-members during the COVID period. This was also a great way for a lot of our members to get their information out during these difficult times. Next slide, please. So with our capabilities, we have a lot of business development and visibility opportunities. We have an award-winning magazine. Hopefully some of you are aware of it. It's called New Jersey Business Magazine. It's published monthly. Every month, different topics, business issues, some fun stuff in there as well, but very long publication that's regarded as one of the best in the state, if not the best. We recently started a TV show called Minding Your Business. It airs on New Jersey TV on NJ12 Plus on Saturdays and Sundays during the business segment. We rolled that out in September. It's been very well received. Had some very good guests from pharma, from former Governor McGreevey talking about re-entry programs with prisoners, former Lieutenant Governor Gordano at the food bank, and just every other topic imaginable. We have a podcast, other people's business. This is made up of our members, again, who share a little bit about their personal life, but also tie in their business and why they do what they do. And it's really a different type of business podcast that we're really proud of. We have a member marketplace where you can offer discounts to members and non-members on our website. We basically set up a little website on our website for members to offer discounts, as I mentioned, to members or non-members. Especially during COVID, people were coming to us because we provide a lot of information. We have a whole section on our website on resources and recovery, some of which Rob mentioned in regards to the EDA loans and small business loans. We have a whole area for that. So a lot of traffic on our website. And then, of course, we have events and webinar partnerships. As I mentioned, we got a lot of new partners who were able to put a webinar together and get that information out to our members. And then we worked with some members on co-branded direct emails to our membership. Again, some of it tied around the PPP and where to get services and those types of things. But we have a lot of different ways to get information in front of the people that you want to get the information to. Next slide, please. And then, of course, because of our size, we have a lot of buying power. We offer our members access to health benefit plans. This has been a big driver for us for the past 2 years, or 3 years probably at this point. It's even a sole proprietor has access to it. It's administered by Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield. There's 100+ plan designs. There's all kinds of choices as far as dental, eye, health, life insurance, various different options. With the 100+ plan designs, we are confident that members can find something that fits their needs. Because of the success there, we just recently rolled out a multiple employer 401k plan. That's picking up some traction. Again, the idea of everybody pulling their resources together, which will give you access to better products and better pricing. Particularly for companies who are over 100 employees, by being part of our multiple employer plan, you would avoid your annual audit, which could cost between $8,000 to $10,000. So that's immediate savings and an immediate ROI for companies in those areas. We just recently launched a HR support center. This is something that I worked on and something that our members told us that they really were interested in. I think it's great. As part of your basic dues, you get the basic package, which includes all kinds of templates for employee handbooks, policies, procedures, sample interview questions, sample job descriptions. One of the other great services this provides is every couple of days, the HR support center will send out an email. Today's question was, can I ask an applicant if they need a accommodation to perform their job? That may be something that you come across. Well, it's answered by a SHRM certified professional. And just in case you're wondering, the answer to that question is no, you cannot, because that would indicate that you have a pre-employment disability inquiry, which is prohibited under the American with Disabilities Act. So this is the type of information that is sent to our members on a regular basis to keep them compliant with all the ever changing HR and all the other moving parts that go on with our laws and regulations. We have a partnership with a New Jersey-based company called Prime Point for payroll services, shipping. We have saved members as little as $30 a year to tens of thousands of dollars a year. It's mainly run through UPS. There's no sign-up fee, no minimum usage, just savings when you need it. Then we started recently, again, because of COVID, some workplace safety certifications. These are meant to give your customers, your employees, confidence that you provide a healthy workplace. The Healthy Business Certification is for a business. It's a 3-hour course. It's approved by OSHA, CDC, and the WHO. So you get a sticker at the end to display that you are a New Jersey Healthy Certified business. It also has individual certifications. If you have employees, some of our contractors who go into people's businesses, home health care agencies who have people going in. These are 45-minute online trainings that, again, can give people whose houses you're going into the confidence that you have training and are aware of everything you need to be. We've just partnered with Hackensack Meridian to keep through a Keep America Safe program. This is phenomenal in that they provide a hotline. So as part of this certification training, and there is a cost to it, you will have a hotline that you can call and ask, on the spot questions. A person just called me and said they tested positive and they were in the office 3 days ago. What should I do? You can get an answer to, what the Hackensack Meridian professionals feel is the right guidance. They have a whole resource area and they do monthly briefings on various different topics. That's all part of that workplace safety training. And then we do have an employment law resource through our partners at Connell Foley. It's mainly focused on employment law because those are the issues that come to us most frequently. So there is an employment law resource available to our members as well. Next slide, please. So again, I can go on and on about NJBIA, but I know we want to leave times. We provide a lot of money-saving benefits, a lot of education, a lot of compliance information, a lot of business development opportunities. Here's my contact information. My cell phone and email are all right there. Be happy to take any questions. And again, want to thank the mayor and Stacy and everybody involved for giving me the opportunity to spend a little bit of time with you this morning. Thank you so much, Stacy.
It would help if I unmuted myself. Thank you both. Thank you, Wayne. Thank you, Rob, for joining us this morning and providing some information. I don't see any questions in the chat, but I did have a couple that came prior. So I wanted to start with you, Rob. And it actually falls in line with a lot of the information that you already provided, which was, is there a known trap or a known issue that comes to the bank for small businesses when they're starting off? Is there something that you can, lead them out of the way for having to come to a bank and ask for assistance or a loan?
Wait, what was the question?
Sorry. Is there a known trap for businesses or a known experience that businesses have when they're small and starting off that would prevent them from having to come to the bank for a loan?
So, obviously, not disclosing things that might be considered negative is probably the biggest trap. But I encourage all businesses to come talk to your bank. Like our bank, for example, we have small business specialists who could talk to you about your business, and maybe you don't qualify for a loan today, but just by having that conversation, we try to educate the customer on, okay, here's why you don't qualify today, but here's what you need to do to qualify in the future. And I've been here over my 32 years. I've had that conversation so many times with different business owners, and some of those customers that I met 25, 30 years ago are now $50 million in sales, and it started off with, me talking to them for 2 years before they could even qualify for the loan in the first place, because they were so small or they were a startup. Startups are probably the hardest to finance. It's not completely out of the question. And that's where the SBA really comes in. But I would say a brand new startup business is probably difficult, but at least have the conversation with your banker to kind of understand and formulate a plan. Okay, well, how do I get financing as soon as possible? And I think so. I encourage every business. I don't care if you qualify, don't qualify. We want to talk to you and we want to help get you what you need at some point, whether it's today or tomorrow.
Thank you, Rob. I thought that's what you would say after hearing what you were saying. I have one more question for you. Would you need to have a personal account with a bank in order to get a business loan? So with TD Bank, do you need to have a personal account?
No, you don't. You need to have an account, but it's generally, an account in the name of the business is the bare minimum. So if you apply for a business loan under XYZ Corporation, we're going to want to see an account in the name of XYZ Corporation. Like, we're going to want your main operating account, but you're not required to have all your banking in one place. It does help. I mean, because banks price their loans based on the relationship that you have with the bank. So when I come up with an interest rate for a loan, a business loan, your total relationship they have with the bank is factored into that, but it's not required. We basically only require what we call the borrower to have an account.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. What I appreciate is that if the question wasn't answered the way you would like it to, Rob's information is also provided, so he would be able to answer that further for you or point you in the right direction.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So for Wayne, there was just one question that we had, which was, of course, regarding the money that is required to sign up. What is the best way to find out? Is it depending on what you need for your business? Is there a special price for that? Are you priced by the size of your business? How's the pricing done for NJBIA?
Yes, ma'am. It is based on the number of full-time employees that you have in New Jersey currently. We are looking at various different ways, but right now it is based on the number of full-time employees that you have in New Jersey. Just to give a ballpark, for a sole proprietor, the annual dues are $345. For a business for 2 to 10 employees, it's $395. It's an annual membership, 12 months. So if you join now, it would be good till May of next year. And then it slightly increases, from there. 11 to 25 is $445, and then slight increases as you go up from there. It does, as I mentioned, access to all those programs. Our feeling is if you utilize one or two of our money saving benefits, you're going to recoup your money in dues and see an immediate ROI on your investment in NJBIA. And then, as I mentioned, the networking, the compliance assistance, all those things that are hard to put a dollar amount on, but that do deliver a true ROI back to the organization.
Yeah. I just want to add to that, because I have a lot of small business customers, like really small businesses with sales under $5 million. And the number one complaint, I guess I'll call it, that the owners say to me is, I'm the owner, I'm the CEO, I'm the CFO, I'm the head of HR. I wear all these different hats. And I think that's where something like NJBIA can come in and help take some of that stuff off your plate with some of the programs that they offer. So I would encourage people to join organizations like NJBIA.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you. I just want to again share my screen. I'm going to share your contact information so that you see it. You can see the contact information for each of the speakers and their email addresses. I know Wayne had a different phone number up, so I will make sure that I include that. He had his personal cell number up on the slide he showed previously. So I'm going to add that to this particular slide so that you can see it at a later time. You can see it on our website. Again, I want to say thank you to our speakers. This slide again you'll be able to see and gain the information. These are just their logos and the actual websites. So I want to say thank you for sharing your time, sharing your morning, or whatever time you're looking at this webinar with us. We thank you and we appreciate you. And we hope that you've learned something that you didn't know previously. Thank you so much.